My name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Museum Open House. This ongoing series features and highlights many of the outstanding museums and other cultural institutions. The main purpose of most programs is to inform viewers about current and upcoming exhibits, various programs, resources, and other opportunities that are available for the general public. Today, via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guest Cristobal Cea. Cristobal is a Chilean artist and educator whose work focuses on the relation between digital media, history, and memory as a way to re-examine forgotten histories. He's here today to inform us about his current exhibition entitled Cristobal Cea, No Monsters, No Paradise, which re-examines from a modern and post-colonial perspective creatures described by Europeans upon arriving in the Americas for the first time. During the program, we'll find out why and how the exhibition came about. We'll go on a behind-the-scenes tour, and in the process, come to better understand and appreciate Cristobal's creativity, multidisciplinary craftsmanship, and the over-intent of the installation, which is on display at the Boston Center for the Arts Mills Gallery until December 9th. Let's start by meeting Cristobal and then finding out all about No Monsters, No Paradise. Welcome. So delighted you're able to be here.
Nice to meet you, Jay. Thanks for the interest and the show.
I had the wonderful opportunity to tour the exhibition a few days ago, found it very engaging, eager to hear more and have you inform viewers. But before we jump right to that, would you please start by just briefly sharing a little bit more about your background, artistic and professional interests, please?
Yeah, sure. I was born in the 80s, in early 80s, in Santiago, in Chile. So that makes me an what they call a geriatric millennial. Like in between, like people that remember when the internet was optional. I went to art school there. I started, I think that I wanted to be a painter, but I was also very interested, I guess, generation-wise, in computers. I'm curious, so I sort of like started to mix everything up. And I would say the past 5 years, especially after the pandemic, I started to like mix things more openly. And as an artist, I would say, like, yeah, you mentioned that bio, that like history, memory, and I don't remember what else, but within the domain of digital media, what I find interesting is that archives are becoming more and more like memory in the way that they're like malleable and like not really trustable. So I'm very interested in working in that regard, and especially I think with issues that have to do with the construction of denial. Like, how do you deny what things you need to imagine and what things have been created in order for people not to see things? Like one of my first pieces that was kind of like important was about a fighter bomber jet that bombed the La Moneda Palace in 1973. But of course, I was born in 81, and I was very, I can send you the video for that. It's called Hogger Hunted. But the video came out of realizing that I remember like a person close to me that told me as a child, I asked him about the photograph of the La Moneda Palace, and the person told me, and I asked, it's like kind of like having the Pentagon bombed. And I asked him like, so what happened? And the person told me like, no, it was like very, very good shooting because the missiles went through the doors. And that was a very important moment for me, because I think that is the first recollection that I have of like a fact being transformed into another thing.
Yeah.
No,
so, it's so timely, that type of thinking and approach you have, because we're just seeing that so much more and more in the news and with current events from people's different viewpoints regularly now.
Yeah, it has become, I don't know if it happened to you, but I think I talk with my partner about this all the time, that the world flipped upside down. And I always thought that we were like on the way towards pre-modernity in a way, but this feels like a very medieval time cognitively.
It's very true. It really is strange times indeed. Well, moving on for the sake of time to the exhibition, why and how did No Monsters, No Paradise come about?
Well, I mean, as I was telling you, I'm very, very, very interested, more than in how denial is constructed, what do people that don't know, what do you see when you don't know how to see? There's this neurologist Oliver Sacks that had this book about, it's a great book, right? And he has all of these accounts of neurological issues, and I think that in one of those books he mentions the issue that if you are born without the ability to see and suddenly you can see, when you're presented with an apple, you won't see an apple, because seeing is something that you learn. So this show came out. I've always been interested in myths and things like that, but about finding out that when Europeans came to America, they saw what they were confronted with, the apple problem, right? Like they saw things that they didn't have a language to see, and they saw what they knew or what they wanted to see, which on the one hand is kind of natural, and I guess that's why like a pineapple is called a pineapple, is because it's like, it looks like an apple, that like that's a thing that so, but it has nothing to do with the apple. And on the other hand, it can be, as you mentioned, it happens today, but this issue of cognition can be employed. And I was fascinated by how, on the one hand, it was like being confronted with what you don't know, and on the other hand, is wanting to see monsters. So I worked for some years on this intermittently, and I wanted to make characters out of them, sort of to break the spell in a way, and to think about what it means to be an imaginary, like what is to be an imaginary being.
For those who haven't had the opportunity yet to visit the exhibition, would you give us a sense, and we have some images, how things are laid out and what we can look forward to engaging with?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the show was curated by Byte Footage, which is Julia Seinblum and Julieta Gomez Blumenwijk, who are like two Argentinians curator that I met in Buenos Aires in 2019, or 2018, I don't remember. But they laid out like a very thorough explanation of like the historical aspects of the show, like the source material, which I really appreciate it. They did a great job there. And then once you get in, there are paintings and animations, right? But like some large landscape paintings are like very important in the show, and those landscape paintings are interpretations that I made from paintings from like landscape paintings from between the 1600s and the 1900s. Like the first one is an interpretation of a painting from the War of Chaco. But I made them in a way that I was always thinking about horoscopes in a way, like, seeing the future in a bunch of tea leaves. Like, how could you paint in a way that it looks like it was that it is a coincidence, that it's not, it doesn't deny that it's just a bundle of like blobs that look like something. So the show like intertwines these paintings that have like these characteristics with some panels. And it's funny that the paintings are based, most of the school of painting in America is based on the idea of that landscape has a physiognomy that is sort of like represents the person that lives there, which is Alexander von Humboldt's idea. And then the panels are the characters that inhabit this landscape in a way. And they are situated within the gallery because I thought with Julia and Julieta that it was important to me. The figure of the ghost is something that I'm very drawn to, but the ghost as an unresolved conflict that is part of history, but in a way it's also present. And I wanted the ghost to be like haunting the gallery, so the panels are site-specific animations in the sense that they are animated for the gallery, sort of implying that these creatures are there too. You know, they're not far, either in history or in geography. And I did there are three characters in the show. One is the Waipanoma, which is this headless person from the Guyana, described by Walter Raleigh, which is like, I mean, yeah, it's kind of like the most important character in the show because I try to work on, I'm gonna keep on working on these characters, but I try to sort of like giving an imaginary being the opportunity to defend itself or to represent itself and not to represent something else. And I want the Waipanoma to talk about his life, his genealogy, and what is the power of being a creature that does not exist, but paradoxically it's very visible.
Well, you know, since we're fortunate to have a clip, I think we're gonna skip ahead with our images for a second and then come back and get to show viewers what you have in mind here, what you've created. So before we run this short clip, want to say a few more words?
Yeah, sure. The issue about the Waipanoma is that it's like a migration of a hoax in a way. The first mention that I know of a headless creature is from the classic of the mountains and the seas, from China, from the 4th century BC, and it's supposed to be someone that fights with a god, and the god cuts the head. And apparently, within the travels of Marco Polo and stuff, this idea traveled too. And Pliny the Elder described people without heads with that they always inhabit the unknown, right? And the last migration of this, in the middle, there were some fake documents from Saint Augustine that also proclaimed that there were people without heads. But the last one is this Walter Raleigh notion that he described in detail, without never seeing that he saw the character, just like relying on the authority of witnesses that they actually existed.
Well, let's take an opportunity to hear what we can enjoy.
So, this is the first time I make the Waipanoma. I never really existed. Some people think that I was an orangutan, but orangutans are from some other place. You know, they have their heads low, so when they're seated, you could think that they have the head in the chest. It's just that they have the head low. So I'm basically gossip, embodied gossip. Walter made me up. I lived in the Guyana. There's a nice drawing of me naked, kind of chubby. But I do have a bow and arrow. Weirdly enough, the bow holster, the arrow holster, looks like.
Really appreciate your playfulness throughout in exhibiting the different creatures. Just a few words, because definitely want to look at some others, but what's the process like for you to come up with something like this?
Well, I have to sculpt them. I rely on documents, right? So this one is modeled after some engravings by Roger Debris, which is actually kind of chubby character. And then I use digital sculpting software. So that takes a while, like to interpret it and etc. Then to paint it digitally, and then I use Blender, which is an open source animation package to make a puppet and model expressions and stuff. It's like, it sounds very easy, but it's a lot of time. And now I have a creature that I could actually I don't even need to do a video, like you can connect it to the face and have a virtual avatar, which is something I'm very interested in.
Mm. Well, as I mentioned, we're fortunate to have a couple of other clips. And since we started with that one, let's continue. Just a quick word before we see this relatively short clip of these two panels, what you intend here. What are you showcasing on these two panels? Yeah, I know we're just going to see a little snippet, but to give us an overall sense.
So those are two characters that one is the White Panama, right? Which is, like, I call it like the native imaginary character, even though it's a figment that probably traveled from China. And the other one is this kid that is actually like a self-portrait of myself, age 11. But the kid is disguised as it has a feet on the background, right? So, which is based on another painting by by Eckhout, Albert Eckhout, from I think that from 18th century, probably. But people were obsessed by cannibals. And I made this kid that is myself, age 11, be kind of that casual cannibal that Eckhout depicted. Because there are some issues when you come from a place that is supposed to be or was inhabited with cannibals, that in a way still makes you a cannibal. I have a little anecdote, if you allow me, but I remember my father went to a German school. He's very old now. He's 83. And once I remember asking him about his school, and he was like, well, it was made by these missionaries from Germany. And I was, so keep going. And he was like, well, I was often baffled because they went to all of these uncivilized places like China, Thailand, Bolivia. What were we doing there? And I always loved that conversation because I look at him and I was like, so what do you think they were doing here in Chile? You thought that you didn't realize that you're part of the group of uncivilized peoples. And I wanted this character, the kid, to be that unaware cannibal in a way, and to represent the notion that even if you're not, even if it's fiction, that it still affects you.
Nice. Well, let's run this and continue afterwards. Another wonderful addition to the exhibition, and we just heard a little snippet of the background sounds that help immerse you into the setting. How were those chosen and added to the exhibition?
Actually, that was, those background sounds, that sound piece was made by Constanza Alarcón, who's my partner and wife and spouse, etc. Formerly girlfriend. Yeah, and those sounds were like she's a sound artist, or I mean she's a sculptor but works with sound. But we wanted to have the place feel haunted like a forest, and I asked her to do a piece for it with sounds that some sounds I captured on the island of Chiloé in Chile, which is a very haunted place, and other sounds were from Puerto Rico too. So we wanted to do a landscape that is like the sound of a continent and not the sound of a specific place.
Well, it really works extremely well. This is a fascinating panel that we're fortunate to have a clip about. A quick word before we roll the clip of the different transformations we're about to see.
Yeah, I used well, I mean, I technically work on digital media, like that's my area, and I work with AI, and I've used some AI image generation algorithms on like where I used as a prompt an animation that I had made. And I made an animation based on Robert Rauschenberg's monogram, the sculpture that Rauschenberg made in the, I think, 50s, 60s, I don't remember. And it's kind of hilarious because modern art tends to make up for great AI prompts because the contraptions are very absurd. Like a goat with a tire is something that like it sounds like an AI prompt, and it worked beautifully. And the weird thing, it was an experiment, but it sort of revealed itself to me that I feed the image of monogram of the goat with the tire, and the AI like casually tended to bring back monsters because the AI doesn't works in a way that is very irrational. And so it, like by definition, it brings back monsters because the AI doesn't care if the back of the goat is from a manatee and the front is from a cow. It just wants it to be statistically like a goat. And I was impressed that it was a monster.
Well, let's take advantage of our time and enjoy your work.
That even had a human, I think. And that one has kitties and pandas. And I didn't ask it to have kitties and pandas, but
AI definitely has a mind of its own at times.
But it's a mind of irrationality, which I find like that's what I love. That sort of like it's a weird coincidence because photography as an image is like you have perspective, and perspective is the dream of a scientific image, right? Independent. And then photography sort of proves it. And then you have 3D animation that sort of like take equation from Maxwell and all of the scientific equations and produces a photograph out of science. Without the need for reality. And then you have AI images which are the product of cognitive, like of computer science, and computer science, information sciences are not concerned with truth, but with behavior. I'm sorry to say it, but it's like, I mean, it's the kind of thing that you see on Amazon.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that it produces an image that is an image of irrationality, and not an image of like formula science, right?
Understand. You know, we in the limited time left, we have this very short clip of another panel area. A quick word about the graphic here and the little clip we're about to see.
Well, I also use some AI tools for that, but and I like mixing AI with 3D animation. That is a foot, because one of these myths was that giants were reported to be seen in Patagonia. So it's the foot of a giant. That's like Patagon. Pata means foot. And I made a little animation of a giant foot, and on the background, I made a background that looked like the Patagonia logo, and I fed that to AI saying like beautiful sunset in Patagonia with clouds, and I mixed the different outputs. I sort of like, I'm a bit of a trickster too. I like having fun, but like just that the Patagonia logo is, it's like a conflation of two myths, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, well, the fun you have definitely comes through, and we're going to roll the clip here. That's great. That's great. What's been some of the reaction and feedback to the exhibition?
It's been good. I mean, colleagues were really happy. They told me that they like it, which I appreciate. I've been able to like show it to people, and it had some very nice reviews in Boston Globe and on the Boston Art Review, which I'm very happy. Honestly, though, like I'm very skeptical even about myself. So, and I always like, I don't know, I make exhibitions as stages in a process that I hope is longer.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What's been some of the additional programming related to the exhibition?
We're working with the, like, we're working, I love the concept of like how gossip changed like as a thing with this whole idea of seeing things that don't exist. So we made a program with Byte and Sociedad Latina in Boston, about like sort of engaging with how gossip is generated and within art. So we made a stop motion animation, like animation with clay, where we read. I love the issue of like reading stuff and drawing automatically or creating automatically. So we made a stop motion claymation, where I read some excerpts from Jorge Luis Borges' Bestiary. Like he has a book of imaginary beings, and they sort of have to make as we read, which is a very beautiful and I don't know, liberating thing in a way. And yesterday we did a workshop about the stories of the headless people told by Pliny and Raleigh and the classic of Mantus on the Seas, and it was the same procedure but with drawing.
Nice, nice. You know, in closing, how can viewers and others stay informed about your work?
I do have a website that I don't know how useful it is now, because like apparently no one goes to artist websites anymore. That is my best resource though. I mean, that's the www.cristobalcea.net, and I do have an Instagram account too, that is cristobalcea.net, which is, I guess, my I use it as a work account. Remember when Instagram was about like social media was fun?
I know it. You got to be very careful. Well, we'll put those contact links in the credits to the program. But Cristobal, unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time. I want to thank you so much for being here, for creating this fantastic exhibition, for sharing your work. Look forward to future exhibitions and other areas of endeavors, and continued success with all the different areas and the mediums that you're going to be exploring.
Thank you so much, Jay. I really enjoyed my time here.
Also want to thank those of you for watching, and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.